All right, what's going on? We are giving away Mountain West Championship football game tickets all week right here on Idaho Sports Talk. Just gave away our first pair last hour, so stay tuned with us. And rumor has it on Wednesday, on a Where's the Van Wednesday, going to be a lot of tickets given away. It's a busy week. Mountain West Championship game, Boise State hosting Fresno State, Boise State basketball tomorrow hosting Cal State Northridge. We're Prater in the ball game, and we appreciate you guys. 208-424-9300. Call or speak. Prater, speaking of speaking, Andy Avalos, Spencer Danielson, Dirk Koetter did their customary Monday presser. Typically, they wouldn't do this presser, but since you have the Mountain West Championship game, right, we get another week, huh?
Yeah, absolutely get another week, and probably the last one before bowl season, the last chance to talk to these three knuckleheads and figure out what happened with the Utah State game. I said that affectionately, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know where you're going, man.
I was actually butthurt today because I actually got when Andy Avalos doesn't like your question down there, it's next question. I got my first next question today. I felt bad.
That's only because he thought maybe if he answered it, Prater, he'd give the competition some ammunition.
Well, I don't care though. But he came out in his opening statement, and twice he mentioned self-scouting. We spent a lot of time over the last 4 days self-scouting. He mentioned it twice without being solicited. And then in an answer to another question, he's mentioned it a third time. So I said, you've mentioned self-scouting 3 times. What'd you find out about yourself? I mean, I knew I was
not answering.
Well, of course I knew that, but he can't mention self-scouting 3 times and the reporters just sit there and ignore him.
Yeah, he looked at Prater and he's like, Mike, I'm not going to give you, why would I tell you that? I'm not going to tell the whole league right now what we found out, where we were stinky McGillicuddy and where we weren't. And he just kind of dodged a little bit.
Yeah, but you guys were all too afraid to even ask him. He mentioned it 3 times. Somebody had to ask him.
Yeah, I had a list of questions I wanted asked. I'm sorry, Prater, but
your questions were very good today, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. I will say this. He dodged you in a better manner. He had more bedside manner to your question than he does with other members of the media, where he'll just simply, next question, almost shaking his head out of like, oh my God, next question. Who is this yahoo? At least with you, it was a respectful next question.
It still hurt my feelers. It hurt it got me right in the feels, ball game.
Oh man, I love it. Andy Avalos did have this to say when asked about playing the Mountain West Football Championship game on the blue.
It's awesome to be able to have the opportunity to play in the championship game, at home. You don't get to play in these games. A lot of people don't get to play in these games. They could spend a long career working to be in games like this, and to get to play it at home in front of Bronco Nation right here, in the Treasure Valley in our state and all that. That is a big deal. And we take great pride in that, and we're very fortunate. We're looking forward to Bronco Nation packing the house and being loud and being supportive. We say it all the time, and I think it not only shows when recruits or families or friends or people that don't get a chance to come into Albertson Stadium and see a game all the time, their experience, their first time here. I mean, people remember that, and we're very grateful to be a part of everything going on in this state, in this city right here, and to be right at the forefront of it in this program.
Again, that's Andy Avalos talking about playing on the blue, Prater. Little different this time, though, around. You said we're going to mention this guy's name a lot this week, but when Fresno State came here earlier, it was without Jake Haener, who was the preseason player of the year in this league. Well, he's recovered, and we might find out tomorrow that he's the regular season player of the year in this league. He's got a shot to win that thing.
And I don't think I have a beef against that. Even though we missed a third of the season, I don't think I'd have a beef with that, but we can debate that a little bit tomorrow. Obviously they were without Evan Williams, their star safety as well. Both of those guys are going to be back. So, there's no doubt that this is a different, it was 40-20 in that game. If I remember right. Was that right? Was that the score?
Feels right.
40-20 after that game.
Head. Yeah.
And it's definitely going to be a little bit different. I think they should change the rules of this game. First 1 to 40 wins. And it might only take 3 quarters.
Yeah. If that was the case, then you might be out of here before halftime in some cases. This is Andy Avalos earlier today talking about, hey, this is a different Fresno team with Jake Haener under center.
I mean, Jake's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I mean, his numbers, his efficiency. His production shows that. And, you know, they've got a really, really good wide receiver core that, you know, has been very explosive and productive throughout the course of the year period. And so, you know, we've got to make sure that we're very diligent with what we're doing and how we're doing it and how we're executing our techniques.
Didn't get overly emotional there. Didn't get him overly emotional there, but you know, that he will spend a lot of his time focusing on Jake Koetter and Spencer Danielson. You'll hear from Spencer a little bit here in a second on Jake Koetter as well. But Andy Avalos was also asked about Fresno State and its improving defense. I just told you, Evan Williams, preseason all-conference safety, hasn't played and has come back. He's one of the more dominant defensive players in the Mountain West and is a difference maker. And he's also making this football team better on defense.
By the way, I think Andy Avalos is going to claim Coach of the Year in the Mountain West tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think it's
right
unanimous.
There's not even a debate. I mean, who are we giving this to?
I mean,
Tedford?
Tedford and Avalos both overcame obstacles, both got their teams to the ultimate goal in the Mountain West Conference, is to get you to the championship game. I think Andy Avalos had a lot more to do with it. It was one of the more unique seasons. I think Andy Avalos, they won't tell us the vote, but I think Andy Avalos should be the unanimous Coach of the Year tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you, man. He also talked about, you know, Fresno's defense, Prater. It's been improving. They're on this win streak as well. Andy Avalos talking about when Boise State has the ball and Fresno is on defense in this thing.
Watching the film here, they've improved. You know, with their personnel, they've got really good personnel. You know, Evan didn't play in the first game, and he's a huge part of their defense and what they've done for a couple of years now. I mean, he's been a very productive player. He's a very instinctual, very smart, very disciplined player. And so here in the last couple games, you know, really, I mean, they've been on a 7-game winning streak here, and they've really they've adjusted a few things in how they're playing up front in terms of fronts to give a couple different looks that has helped them. It creates more work on an offensive front and identifying certain things. But they've got some really good players. I mean, they got really good linebackers that are very consistent in their play, both in the run game and in the pass game.
All right, here's Boise State defensive coordinator Spencer Danielson going back to Jake Koetter and Fresno State's, you know, rock star quarterback, how they're going to stop him. And after that, there's a follow-up question from my good friend here, Johnny Ballgame, asking about, you know, Jake Koetter's quarterback coach, Jake Koetter's offensive coordinator. You may have heard him, a kid by the name of Kirby Moore. Listen for that answer as well.
The respect that we have, obviously, for their entire offense, how they do things schematically and how they attack defenses, I think is one of the best in the country. But Jake Koetter, you know, is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation for a reason. You know, he's tough. He can make every single throw. He can make it on time. He can create movement in the pocket. People try to rush him. He gets away from it. So he's what makes the whole thing go. And they've obviously got a lot of weapons around him as well. With Mims, the receiving core is one of the best receiving cores we'll see all year. They got a good offensive line that can run the ball, but also protect him. And if something does go wrong, that's who Jake Koetter can win in the gray. Like, he's a guy that something went wrong, he will make it right and turn it into a big play. And he does it consistently across the all over the film. But I think the thing that I respect most about him is just how he leads that offense. I mean, he is the energizer that gets that thing moving at all times. And he seems like he's a big time encourager, leader, gets on guys, get guys going. And those guys are tough to beat just because they never say die, and they're going to keep swinging. So we know the task that's waiting for us. Obviously, we played them before. We know the task that's waiting for us with not only that offense that creates a lot of different issues with all the weapons, but you put Jake Koetter back at the reins. We obviously know the major challenge that's coming to town.
What's impressed you with Kirby this first year? Seeing there maybe tendencies, play calling, you've seen him without Jake and now with Dan.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for Kirby and just what he's done this year. Obviously, even prior to this year, before being the offensive coordinator, a known Kirby, and I think he does obviously a hell of a job with with offense schematically, and also just his offense plays really hard. And you can see that, and they play for each other. But I think he does a great job mixing it up. He shows you a ton of different formations, ton of different looks. And so he does a good job keeping the defense on their heels with all the different formations he sees, the different personnels he uses. And he mixes and matches when he's going to take his shots and when he's going to run the ball. And he does a good job making sure his playmakers are touching the ball across the entire game and making sure that, he highlights his stars. And I think, what he did a really good job of, even when Haener was out, was still using all their weapons and finding ways to get him the ball. If it could be wildcat, it could be different ways to get their stars the ball with Haener not in there. Now that Haener's back, I think obviously, I believe they won every game since Boise, Idaho, and it shows. I think they've done a phenomenal job. And now with Jake Haener back with the reins, it's only improved, and got a lot of respect for what he does.
Only 11 quarterbacks in the nation have a better rating than Jake Haener does as far as passing efficiency goes. And I mean, you look at his numbers, and other than the totals, they're better than they were last year. His completion percentage is at 73.5 this year, Jake Haener. His yards per attempt, 8.5, which, I mean, just think about that. Every time Fresno State throws a pass with Jake Haener at quarterback, they've averaged 8.5 yards this season. That's going to be a tall order. Is this the biggest challenge this defense faces since opening night in Corvallis, Prater? And they didn't even know that challenge was coming. But, I mean, this is going to be, you're already on the record, Fresno's going to win this game. I'm sure you think Jake Haener's going to come in here and pitch it around a little bit.
I think they're going to win it just because of Jake Haener. And again, I may change my mind. I'm going to reserve the right to be flip-floppy this week. But sitting right here, what we know about Boise State's defense, which is really, really injured and beat up, I have no idea the guys that didn't play on Saturday or last Friday, if they're going to play against Fresno State. That could have been Andy keeping guys healthy, trying to win this football game. So it's hard to say, but Jake Haener, I think, is the best player in the Mountain West Conference right now. He's the hottest player in the Mountain West Conference. He's thrown 10 touchdown passes over the last 4 games and 0 interceptions. And as you said, averaging, 70-75% in terms of throwing and throwing the ball around for
73.5. I have. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the last 4 games.
Oh, gosh.
There's an 82.4% and 82.8% in there. So he's throwing for 80% and 300 yards and multiple touchdowns and 0 interceptions over the last month.
And he's on fire right now.
It's ridiculous what he's doing right now. So Jake Haener is playing great football. Now, he played Hawaii, UNLV, Nevada, and Wyoming. Not very impressive. He did score 30 points on Wyoming. So, we'll see what happens. But, I think Jake Haener is kind of the guy right now.
I think Haener if we're doing this show right now in Fresno, we're talking about if Haener comes to the Blue, beats Boise State, gets Fresno to the LA Bowl, I guess. I mean, you're putting him, I think, in a company of like the Cars, Trent Dilfer, heck, Jeff Tedford when he played there, guys like Paul Pinniger, who had really good numbers there, all the elite level quarterback play that Fresno has had, and they've had a lot of it. Jake Haener is going to move into that discussion with some really big names there.
I think he's a draftable NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and guarantee he's going to be drafted. I promise you he'll be on an NFL roster next year. He'll be in a camp. He'll be on a roster. I think he'll be drafted late. He's not going to go, he's not going to be a, first or probably even a second day guy, but he's 6'1", 200. He will play in the NFL next year. He's got NFL skills. He's got an NFL mind. He's got an NFL moxie. He checks all the boxes. He's really, really good. He can't run. He can't run for squat. He'd lose to Blitz the T-Dog in a 40-yard dash. Blitz the T-Dog got his ass kicked the other day.
I heard.
Yeah. So, Jake Haener can't run and Taylen Green can. I don't know if that's enough to offset what Jake Haener is going to do, but I think this is going to be an offensive track meet, and I cannot wait to see Kirby Moore and Dirk Koetter.
Yes.
Playing a little chess with each other, as Dirk Koetter likes to say.
Taylen Green versus Jake Haener. Obviously, they don't go against each other, but you get what I'm talking about. And Dirk Koetter today, Prater, he spoke with the media, and we wanted to go back just a little bit because Taylen versus Utah State, I think, is a game that Bronco Nation will reference a long time, kind of like Skinner and Laramie the week before with the 2 picks. And Dirk Koetter talked about Taylen Green's performance on Friday, I should say, not Saturday, Friday against Utah State.
The ability for him to throw the ball downfield and throw it in the end zone, especially the one to Latrell that he threw, that was a complicated coverage that they were in. Now they didn't execute that coverage very well, but they, that would have fooled a lot of guys what they were trying to do. And for him to see it and throw it on time, he didn't play a perfect game by any chance, by any means. I mean, he has some balls he'd like to get back. He had some deep balls where we had guys open and he didn't hit them. But, the other thing is just his knowledge of switching protections at the line of scrimmage. And he's got a fair amount on him in the run game. So, he still just continues to grow every week.
Wow.
I had a motive and an agenda when I asked this question. I asked Dirk Koetter about Taylen Green, Ashton Genty, and Eric McAllister. And Johnny and I started this conversation a couple of weeks ago, the Texas trio, 60 miles apart growing up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A lot of conversation. I swear to God, I got asked so many times this week about everybody wanting to know that everybody thinks Taylen Green's going to leave. And I get it because we live in that kind of a world. And he may. I don't want to sit here and be naive and say Taylen Green's going to stick around for Boise State forever. Could this be his last game on the blue turf? Sure.
Gosh, I hate that.
I hate it too. And I don't want to talk about it. And we actually
Yes.
talked about our strategy this morning about how we're going to handle that. We acknowledge it. We understand that it's real, but I don't know how much we want to push that agenda because I think Taylen Green, Ashton Genty, and Eric McAllister have a bond together. And I was asking Dirk Koetter about what he sees when he sees that these three, the wide receiver, the running back, the quarterback, all freshmen, all buddies from Texas, how they interact during practice.
When you say, how do I see them interacting? All three of those guys are really good teammates. I mean, they're just popular guys. As much as I've moved around over the years, one thing is there's different parts of the country where young men growing up seem to really love football more than others, and Texas is one of those, and the South is another one. But I'd say the one thing is all three of those guys they're all about football, but they also know how to have a good time.
He also said, maybe we'll play this later on in the week, about Eric McAllister. Dirk Koetter loves talking about Eric McAllister, and he obviously loves talking about Taylen Green. But he said something along the lines of Bronco Nation is going to be extremely pleased with Eric McAllister over the next couple of years. Like, it's coming, it's already kind of here. It's just in spurts, but he is a massive potential. Dirk Koetter loves those guys, and great stuff from him on the Texas trio. Dirk also talked about, and this is kind of a buzzkill, but this will be Dirk's last game coaching on the blue, and the bowl game will be his last game. And then Dirk Koetter's going to retire, and he's going to go play golf, and he's going to be the cool guy, Dirk Koetter. What has this experience coming back coaching on this one interim quirky type of deal, what has he learned from it?
The one thing is even for someone who's been around football as much as me, it's a good example of how, all these college teams have 100+ guys on them, and they all got here somehow. Somebody thought they were good enough, but sometimes you get a depth chart going, and then reps are staggered based on where you're at on the depth chart. And sometimes maybe a guy doesn't really have a chance to show how good he is just because of the way the cards are dealt. And as I've said many weeks, Taylen has far exceeded my expectations, even if, when I was watching him before. Sometimes you just got to get a chance, right? You just got to get your chance to get in there. And I'm sure there's plenty of times when it's not going to go at the rising level that Taylen has, but he sure has.
Johnny, I thought that was a beautiful question from you, and I thought it was a really smart answer. And if I was going to a coaches committee, a coaches conference, in January, all these knuckleheads go to somewhere and spend a lot of money and
golf
and drink cocktails and trade a couple of story ideas around. And, it's just, keep an open mind at that depth chart. I know fans have when he was saying that, I kept thinking, how many times over 30 years of covering college football have I heard fans say exactly what Dirk Koetter is saying right now? Just give my guy a chance.
Yes.
When fans say it, it's because it's personal and they want to see little Johnny play football. And 9 times out of 10, they're wrong and the coach is right. But if you can make that one right decision out of 10 times and change your football team, and obviously in this particular case, there were circumstances that forced people to make these decisions. But as a football coach, it's probably a good reminder. Is that number 2 or 3 guy in the depth chart really better than the number 1 guy? And I'm being so damn stubborn, I'm not going to give him a chance.
Yeah, that stood out to me more than maybe anything else Dirk Koetter said today.
Agreed.
Because it made me think like, okay, Tim Plow or whatever reason had it fixated that Eric McAllister just was too far down on the depth chart now. He doesn't get to play yet. He has to wait his turn, despite making plays in practice. And a lot of times, you don't even get the opportunity to make the play because there's only so many reps that go along as well. And for Dirk Koetter to come in there and say, hey, sometimes it's a new set of eyeballs, a new philosophy, giving a kid a shot. And that worked tremendously this season with Eric McAllister in particular, I think, Prater. And that really stood out to me with Dirk saying, like, hey, some coaches, hey, the depth chart's the depth chart. We can't do anything with it. No, sometimes you can, and sometimes it pays off. Okay, we're going to talk about the future of Aaron Rodgers. I say shut it down, Green Bay. Prater thinks I'm crazy. We're doing that when we come back on Idaho Sports Talk.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic